Everyone has their own special divine connection where their creativity flows through. Universal creativity, the source of creativity. Where do ideas come from? The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. The greats have never done it this way, so what makes me capable of deciding what is good and what is not? The act of creation is an attempt to enter a mysterious realm. You are part of something much larger that can be explained, a world of immense possibilities. But the idea was pure in the beginning. The solution is already there. Sorry to say it, but the world has to be navigated. An idea coming to fruition in terms of something that wanted to be done but was considered impossible. That is crazy. It is just that not many people want to go through with the process. And it is important to go through with the process. My customers don't know what they want until I give it to them. But the end is very rewarding if you choose correctly in the beginning and if you explore the source. That is what the masters do. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Today's lecture will be about universal creativity. So now we're going to begin with this book right here, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. So Rick Rubin is, I would like to say, a producer. The best way I can say it is he's your producer's favorite producer. What he does is that he's more of a taste guy. So he listens to sounds and he's capable of understanding when something sounds good and when it fits the main idea. That's why he's been able to produce for both metal bands as well as pop bands. It is something that not many are capable of doing, and he has hit records all over the scale. He knows a thing or two about this, so we will start off by a quote that he placed in the beginning by Robert Henry. The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. For the main topic, the source of creativity. Where do ideas come from? We begin with everything. Everything seen, everything done, everything thought, everything felt, everything imagined, everything forgotten, and everything that rests unspoken and unthought within us. Each person in the world has a specific connection with this mystical source of creativity. Everyone has their own special divine connection where their creativity flows through. And when it is manifested through their body, it becomes a variety of amazing inventions or expressions. That's what takes us to talk about the vessel itself. The vessel and the filter. Not everything makes it through the filter. What is the filter? It is our mind. The mind is always awake and aware of everything that is coming through it. So the more that you live in society and the more that you let your environment get into your head, the less pure the idea becomes. It becomes tainted. What are some of the examples of this taint? It's the idea will never work because it's never done before. Is that an example? Or what will people think of me if I use this approach? Or the greats have never done it this way, so what makes me capable of deciding what is good and what is not? These are all the taints that come in that funnel, from where the idea comes from, on that bridge from the source to yourself, and that has to be cleaned. The unseen realm itself. The act of creation is an attempt to enter a mysterious realm. A longing to transcend what we create allows us to share glimpses of an inner landscape, one that is beyond our understanding. Art is our portal to the unseen world. The world of reason can be narrow and filled with dead ends, while the spiritual viewpoint is limitless and invites fantastic possibilities. The unseen world is boundless. The practice of spirituality is a way of looking at a world where you're not alone. There are deeper meanings behind the surface. The energy around you can be harnessed to elevate your work. You are part of something much larger that can be explained. A world of immense possibilities. Something that I want to make emphasis on is that ideas are perfect when they're up there, wherever they come from, or from within, whatever you feel comfortable saying the source is at. But what I want to say by this is that try this exercise. Think about the most outrageous idea that you think could change the world. Just idea and what it's going to accomplish. And you're going to realize that it is very simple in the mind to just find the answer immediately. But then you're bringing it to a medium, to something that you want to create. That's when the problems start coming. But the idea was pure in the beginning. The solution is already there. What is complex is bringing it down here so that I can actually do what it was meant to do. And that is your job as a creator. And for those of you that like the artistic style, I'm sorry to say it, but the world has to be navigated. Legal rights, copyrights, and all that stuff, they have to be maneuvered. You have to work with other people. You can't just be this crazy guy that is in this room alone, and then all of a sudden they find his work and it becomes amazing. That is a mythical tale. It doesn't happen that way. To get that work out there, someone had to do the work. For that genius, in those specific cases, it's because someone that actually navigated the world did it for them. So you have to take that into account. And before we get to this book, which is not something that I'm going to grab excerpts of, it is an example, I'm going to talk about historical inventions. And for one of those, I want to tell you about the Wright brothers. Those are some of the base cases that you can see about an idea coming to fruition in terms of something that wanted to be done but was considered impossible. Because how can these people, just by looking at birds, say, we could create an invention that can fly when nothing used to fly before? That is crazy. But it is one of the peak examples of them actually trying different ways to try to create this thing that was supposed to fly. But the idea itself was great. It is just that not many people want to go through with the process. And it is important to go through with the process. Another one, Henry Ford. When Henry Ford started to tinker with motors and engines, everybody went everywhere with horses. That was the medium of transportation. But one of my favorite quotes of Henry Ford is this one. If I would have asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse. So he knew what the result was. They wanted to get there faster. But for the creative, you don't share ideas in that baby stage where they're raw. You work on them by yourself, and then you start creating a prototype, and then you test, and then you test again, and then you test again. And that, though they were masters at this, they failed so many times, but they kept through the process, and then they finally got the product that achieved the result. And as you see, after that long and complex process, the idea finally meets back to its source, where it was pure and where it actually worked. And that's when you get these creative inventions. Another one, Steve Jobs, who said the same thing with the iPhone. He told people, my customers don't know what they want until I give it to them. Why? Because he was also an expert of this method. He could see the idea and what it could do for people. Now it was just arduous work. How do we get there? And still, these three people went through the process, navigating the world, because that's how much they cared for the idea. If you're not willing to go through that process, I suggest that you look for an idea that you're actually more willing to lay down on the line for. Something that you're passionate about, because that process is tough. But the end is very rewarding if you choose correctly in the beginning and if you explore the source. How do you explore the source? So I'm going to give you an example. The analogy of the fisher in the river of ideas. This is something that came to me during a meditation when I was trying to think about creative ideas, about products, and about lessons. This source could be seen as an infinite river, and you are the fisherman. When you're on the boat, there are many ways to fish. What rookies do is that they throw the fishing line and impatiently wait for the fish. They reel the line, they look at the bait, they bring it up again, they throw it to another place, go, and there is no depth. So they never reach something of importance. An experienced fisherman waits patiently. They check the line, see if anything bites, and as soon as it bites, with focus, they start reeling it in and make sure that they get it into its actual form. And then they analyze it and they start working upon it. When you get to the more advanced levels, there are people who literally sit on the boat and don't do absolutely anything, and the fish jump on the boat. That is what the masters do. And then there are others that as soon as so many fish are on the boat that they see other people with no fish. So they look at the fish and they realize, these are too many ideas for me. And they start throwing the fish to the other boats so that the others can go through the skinning process and do everything, and then they make the world a better place. And he focuses on his 1, 2, or 3 fish for the rest of his life. And that's the sign of a true master. Now, focusing more on process, we have another excerpt from the book. If we get out of the way and let the art do its work, it may yield the sincerity we seek, and sincerity may look nothing like we expected. It's about allowing the idea to flourish through your work, not forcing the idea to compromise to the process. And this is a very important one, editing. Editing is a demonstration of taste. It isn't expressed through pointing to items we like, the music that pleases our ear, or the films we revisit. Our taste is revealed in how our work is curated, what is included, what is not, and how the pieces are put together. The editor is required to set ego aside. Ego pridefully attaches to individual elements of a work. The editor's role is to remain unattached and see beyond these passions to find unity and balance. Talented artists who are unskilled editors can do subpar work and fail to live up to their gift's promise. The editors step back, views the work holistically, and supports its full potential. That's what I said about keeping the idea holy and never forgetting this, because there's something that happens to even experts, and I've seen it to people in the music business happen. I've seen it happen in business lectures. I've seen it happen everywhere. Someone that is very good with process can make any topic look beautiful and amazing and sound incredible. But if it is not what the purpose of the thing is, it has failed. That is why so many things that you see out there that are beautiful and the artist vouches for it, because they fall in love with the process of the work that they worked on, but they didn't have any purpose. It didn't come from the source of creation of the idea. They just did it, and they were so talented that it made it look good, so they started pushing for something that had no inherent purpose. That's why there are so many beautiful creative works that are only in the hands of curators, and they tell, oh, look how amazing this is. But if you look at the context, it didn't fit in the right place, because it didn't listen to the source, which tells you when it is time for certain artworks to arise. And that brings me to a perfect example, which is this one. Montesquieu's Persian letters. What is so great about this book? You see, in these times, it was the time of the French court. So critiques were out of the question because it meant the guillotine. If you failed in this creative act, you were dead. And I don't mean dead as it happens now that you go, oh, how am I going to pay for my food and my stuff? There's always ways in this modern era because people help. In this, it meant life or death. So what did he do? He wanted to critique the court and its customs. So he listened to the source and he was given a very specific process. But if you listen to this, it sounds crazy. But when your mind is empty and you actually let the idea flow through as it is supposed to be, and you actually do it, then you can analyze it at the end. But many people cut themselves off at the source because they start criticizing it. But when you let it flow, all of a sudden you're going to realize that in the end, the product is actually perfect. So what happened with him? Persian Letters is the story of a Persian prince who went to travel to Europe, and he went to Paris. He left his homeland and his mother and father and multiple wives behind, and he sent them letters explaining how life was in Europe. So as you can already tell, it is very comedic because it is basically a foreigner explaining how everything is so weird when he got to the court. Why were people praising each other when there was no need for praise? Why were they not doing things how they were supposed to be because they were keeping up appearances? And that was his way of criticizing the entire French court and getting laughter out of them and not risking death. And there you have it. Those are some of the examples. And in certain cases, like happened to Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings, or in the case of the Bible, if you become very good at this process, there happens this thing that I call the prophet's dilemma. And it is when your book is so accurate that it starts describing the real world. That's when it gets really interesting. But I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you. And this is something that you will have to experience yourself by doing the process and by following these exercises. So the first one is listening to divine intuition, like I told you. Writing the idea down as it is pure, no limits. And then here's what you got to do. Take that first step. Because after the critiques are on point zero. After the first step is when you already have something written down, you already have a little prototype, just take that first step and keep pushing it. And then at the end, watch what happens. Some of the results you're going to see about this is that you're going to have a lot of enthusiasm, clarity through action that is going to show itself in your results and in your process, specifically in your process, because you're going to realize that now you're having fun again. Because now that those things that are out of the way, like, oh, it's not going to work or anything, they're out. And now you can just have fun. And when you have fun in the process, that's when your product is going to supersede everything else that you've ever done. And it'll become a work of art. If this video spoke to your soul, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Share it with anyone that you believe might benefit from this. And if you want more content, follow me on my other socials that are down in the description, where I go into more depth on divine topics.